Welcome to Books in the World, a program focusing on the world of ideas as they are captured in books, presented by the Cape Cod Writers Center and highlighting noted authors, journalists, publishers, and editors. Your host is Marian Villamere, author, editor, book reviewer, and executive director of the Cape Cod Writers Center.
It's a real pleasure to introduce to you a woman who's an educator, who's also a researcher specializing in aging issues, and who's a freelance writer. Our guest is Ruth Harriet Jacobs, who for 14 years has been associated with Wellesley College for research on women, and who's taught at Boston University Sociology Department and Clark University, and who has written for professional journals and has a column, 2 columns, and has authored 7 books. Ruth is very prolific, and I'm very glad that you're here, Ruth, because also I have to tell you she's a friend of mine. She's been coming to the Cape Cod Writers Conference for how many years?
I'd say about 8 or 10 years,
8
Marian.
or 10. Yeah. And that's how
I love it.
Oh, good. I'm glad to hear that. And incidentally, that's a good way for me to say that at the Cape Cod Writers Conference, we have a gamut of writers. We have people that have written books, people that have written articles and want to write books, people that are just starting, the whole gamut. It's a nice way to get started. Yeah. Well, of course, we're here today, of course, because Ruth has a new book. And so I'm going to hold it up. We Speak for Peace, an anthology edited by Ruth Harriet Jacobs. And I was very impressed with it. And please tell the folks how you got the idea for this one now, Ruth.
During the Persian Gulf War, Marian, I was very much upset because we killed and wounded 200,000 human beings and went into yellow ribbon mania as if it were a victory to kill all those people. And being a religious person, I did the usual things. I prayed, I vigiled on the Boston Common, I contacted my representatives and senators and the White House and all, but of course the war went on, and we did some very cruel things in that war. And in my lifetime, I have lived through 5 official American wars, and many wars that we didn't call wars, but really were. And I wanted to do something to speak out for peace. And so I put 2 little tiny ads in 2 magazines, one called Poet, which is essentially for amateur poets, and the other called Poet and Writers, which is for more
professionals. Yes. We actually advertise in that one.
Do you?
Yeah.
Right. I've seen your ad. And I asked simply for any war and pro-peace poems, gave my name and address, and expected to get about 300 letters, maybe less or more. And much to my surprise, I got 3,000 pieces of mail.
3,000 came in. I read your introduction carefully, and I was amazed. You must have broken your back carrying all those boxes.
Well, I felt very sorry for my mail person, and my whole house was full of cartons of letters and poems, and I spent 6 months just opening them, reading them, sometimes weeping, and sometimes exulting at the wonderful ideas.
There are all kinds. There's remarks on the Gulf War, meditation on the Gulf War, toy soldier, I love my country, I shot him with my gun, valiant soldiers. Yeah, it's really, it's very emotional.
Well, it isn't just about the Gulf War. It's about all wars. We have poems in there from people who served in World War I, World War II, the Korean War, the Vietnam War, and other wars, and also poems by women who's lost husbands or sons,
that
and poems
touching.
by young people who are afraid that they will be affected by future wars. There's one very moving poem by a 16-year-old girl asking that there not be any more wars, and people were from all walks of life, from professionals to blue-collar workers, and to very sophisticated people, to people who had never written poems before. And there were over 3,000 poems submitted, and I could only use 300 in the book. So I used the most diverse, the strongest, and the ones from people of all persuasions. And what's nice is that we were able to put on the bottom of each poem a little biographical sketch.
Yes, I was just going to mention
the writer.
that. Yeah, and it tells when they were born, or if that was important, or how old they were, or the famed, and what their background was. And for example, this man, born in 1915, saw the flash from the first A-bomb test while employed as a fire lookout on Bald Mountain in Northern California in 1945. So he writes a poem, The First Test, and he did not know what he was witnessing alone on a midsummer night.
Right.
Yeah, it's really amazing.
Yeah, there's really wonderful testimony in the book about people who have been affected by war. And there are 9 sections in the book. One of them is preparation for war and socialization to war. The way by the kinds of video games we have now and the kinds of other training, we socialize people to accept war.
We certainly do, don't we? And the other thing I thought that was really good is you've sort of brought us along a kind of the way to use this book. In other words, to sort of work against war and for peace. And I think the camera can probably find the poster and put the poster on, so that we can see how Ruth goes around and sort of tells people how to face up to this situation, do something about it.
Right. When the poems came in, I was overwhelmed. I didn't know how to categorize them or how to select them. And it ended up I put them in cartons and so on, and there were really 9 topics that they fell into, which are listed on the poster. And the last topic is a very powerful one: peace, power, possibilities, prayers, plans, pleas, and preparations. And in that section, I have prayers from all cultures for peace, because people really want peace.
Yes, they do.
And yet we continue to have wars. And
the politics gets in the way.
Politics and a lot of other things. And I sent, as soon as this book came out, I sent a copy to the president. And I said, I hope you will be a peace president. And in fact, I have been trying to raise money to give a copy to every senator and representative with a letter that says, these are your constituents who are tired of war and of having loved ones killed in war.
And I like to say that Ruth has done a lot of other things, like bumper stickers and pins, which you can see she has on her, which says what she believes. But this one is very good, a bumper sticker for the car, "We Speak for Peace." And as you say, it does represent what people really want. I'd like to also mention that Ruth has a good sense of humor. I've experienced it. And after we finish with this, which we just have, I would like to show her next book, Be an Outrageous Older Woman. A RASP, R-A-S-P, Remarkable Aging Smart Person. And this is sold out and going into another printing, right?
Right. We're going to have a new cover, and I just wrote a new chapter called Post-Graduation, because so many people have written me about the book and what it's done for them, said in some cases that it changed their lives, that I wanted to incorporate some of the things I learned from them and some of the things I learned going around the country and doing workshops. And the Be an Outrageous Older Woman, a RAS book, was published by KIT Press, which is the same
So now
publisher
we're going to hold up this one too. Yeah.
that brought that did We Speak for Peace. And if anybody wants to get the books, you can get them here on the Cape in some bookstores, including Charthouse Books in Hyannis, or you can call the publisher at 1-800-826-0529. Both of these books, in fact all of my books, Marion, are really an attempt to help people. I don't write books to make money, and if I make any money I plow it back. In fact, on the Peace book I'm not really being compensated for that. I'm sponsoring readings and so forth on peace because it's an issue that I care very deeply about. And the trouble is, Marion, that between the wars they mourn the dead and hide the wounded and speak of peace, meanwhile arming.
Yes.
And that's why I wanted not to brush under the rug the issue of war now between the wars, but to have us think about how to prevent them, because once we get into a war, we can't stop it.
Can't stop it. Yeah,
we
like
found that out in Vietnam. It went on and on and on.
Right. Now, Ruth, I want to ask you, since you have mentioned the fact that both of these books were published by KIT, and of course I thought, when I first heard of it, KIT, what's KIT?
It's Knowledge, Ideas, and Trends in Manchester, Connecticut.
But I like what's the subtitle of it, The Positive Publisher.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Now, the interesting thing to me was that the editor is in New Jersey, but the publisher is in Manchester, Connecticut. So you can really do a lot of things these days and not be right in one building. But we got to do a little commercial, Ruth. The price on this book that's now available, We Speak for Peace, is $14, paperback. And I was going to give the number of pages, 328 pages, which I think is great. Now, this one, as far as you know, will it still be $14.95?
Yes, we're going to keep the price affordable because older women don't have a lot of money.
Yeah.
The fun thing about it is a lot of older men have been buying the book,
really?
too. They particularly like the sexuality chapter.
Yeah.
I had a great experience with my dentist. I gave a copy of the book to his hygienist, and he asked for a copy, and I said, but it's for women, and he said, no, I want it too. So he got his copy, and then he went into his private office and opened it up, and because I know my own book, I could tell exactly where he had it open.
Yeah.
And it was to the sexuality chapter. And that's the chapter that men like the most.
Well, you actually do this for aging, for men and women, don't you?
Right. In fact,
even though some of these are
some of my work has been about men, but I do a lot of work about women because I am a woman.
Right, and you've had that experience. Now look, let's talk about this one, Older Women Surviving and Thriving. Now tell me about this one.
Well, this was actually written before the Be an Outrageous Older Woman book. I had been going around the country doing workshops for older women. Here in Massachusetts, I'll be doing one in November, for example, for 3 days at the Rowe Conference Center, which is a nonprofit Unitarian Universalist conference center. And I'm a Quaker, and I also do them at our centers, and I do them many, many places all over the country, but I can't do them every place. So I took all the material I had for my workshops and I made a manual that Family Service America in Milwaukee, Wisconsin put out, and it is
Family Service
America. It's a nonprofit agency, it's sort of an umbrella social agency for the country in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And what it is 12 workshop sessions for older women in a church could sponsor it, or a Y, or a senior center.
Yeah, it looks very, very...
And it has all the instructions for running a session,
I can
and
see that.
handouts to go with it that you simply Xerox.
Right.
There are 14 handouts.
Yeah.
And people have been running these all over the country, and it's very gratifying to me because I feel as if I've cloned myself.
Yes, right. Now, speaking of cloned, I have something to ask you. One of the books that you didn't bring, I guess, so we can't see it, is done by Crone Press. Crone, what is it now?
Oh, Crone's Own Press.
Oh, is this one? The button?
Yeah, this was done by Crone's Own Press.
Hold it for the camera.
But actually, now, KIT is going to bring it out again, and I bought out the remaining copies from Crone's Own Press. So if anybody wants them, they can contact me in Wellesley. I'm in the phone book, R.H. Jacobs, in Wellesley, Massachusetts. And what this is a play in which women from 20 to 82 tell their stories. And various of the scenes have been put on separately. For example, there's a scene where a mother and daughter are in conflict. And
the thing that amused me was the publisher, Crone's.
Yes.
I thought that was funny.
That was a wonderful publisher, a woman named Elizabeth Freeman, retired as a guidance counselor from the public schools, and she decided to start a small press.
I see.
Which would publish the work of older women.
Old women, that's why the Crone came.
And so she published my play, and really, which can be read for your own enjoyment, or also read aloud from the scripts and discussed by people.
It seems very poetic.
It is.
I looked at it, because I haven't had a chance to read that one, but it looks very poetic.
And now KIT is going to reissue it, because Elizabeth Freeman has sort of moved on to other activities. And it's very exciting that it's going to have a new life.
I think it's great.
And it's been put on all the way across the country. It's put on a lot at women's clubs and conferences. I spoke the other night at a library, and somebody wanted me to come and speak to a women's club. And I said, you don't need me. You can get the play, you can read the parts aloud from the scripts you Xerox, and then discuss it.
Now, one thing we've got to do is talk about how you got to all these publishers, because people here who watch this show, Southeastern Massachusetts and the various channels, they'd like to be published, and they'd like to know how. Now, your first book was what? This one, We Don't Have Life After Youth?
My first book was a book that Beacon Press bought out.
Now, how did you get to them?
They got to me.
Oh, good.
I am a sociologist and a gerontologist, and I write a lot of articles for professional journals.
I see.
And I had written a typology of older women in a journal called Social Policy, and an editor from Beacon Press saw it and said, why don't you develop it into a book?
I see.
I want to tell those of your listeners, viewers, who are older people not to get discouraged because they haven't published a book yet. My first book was published when I was 55.
Really?
And I've published 6 books since then. My first incarnation was as a newspaper reporter, and then I retired and stayed home with my kids until the youngest went to school, got my bachelor's degree when I was 40, my doctorate when I was 45, and started to teach. And I didn't get around to publishing my first book until I was 55.
But now I have to interrupt because time is passing, and I want to know, the Beacon Press found you, but the next book, Re-Engagement in Later Life, Greylock Press, how did that happen?
Greylock Press also came to me because when you're a college professor and you're publishing in journals and stuff, the publishers are apt to come around and knock at your door and say, do you have anything? But I want to tell you that I found my other publishers.
Now, how did you do it?
Well, I knew that Crone's Own Press was publishing the work of older women. It was a new press, and I sent them the book. Then I wanted to, and that was a good arrangement, and I loved having them and the way they did the book. But it was a small press. And I then went for my next book, which has been out of their mouths, to the university press, the American Studies Press.
Right, yeah.
Because somebody had told me about it, and that worked out very well.
And how'd you find Kit?
Well, Kit is a wonderful story. I was at a writers' conference, and it was announced there that there was an editor from a new publishing venture called KIT Press. And I sought out the editor, whose name was Rita McCullough, a wonderful woman, and I told her I was thinking of writing a book for older women that would be funny, but at the same time serious, and would help older women with their life issues.
Well, this is the one.
And there are a lot of older women around in the United States. We're the long livers, right? And so I said to Rita that I had roughed this out, and she said, send me what you have. And when I got back from the writers' conference, I sent Rita an outline and a couple of chapters, and she called me up and said, we love it.
Good.
And since then, this book has been reprinted about 5 times.
Wonderful.
It's going into a new edition. A great many have been sold all over the country, and it has lots of things that women need, like how to deal with bereavement, and on the other hand, how to have fun, how to deal with sexuality, how to deal with age discrimination.
And you've got book for 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. This book is for you.
Right. Well, a lot of women tell me they buy it for their mothers and read it first.
Right.
And it's given me a lot of gratification. And you see, I took a chance, Marion.
Yes.
Because KIT was a small press.
That's true.
But I liked the personal relationships. I can call Rita.
Yeah.
I can call, Rita McCullough is the editor. I can call Sandy Brown, who's the publisher. I can tell them my crazy ideas, and they follow through. One of my crazy ideas was we ought to make buttons for the book.
Oh, yes.
And we made buttons, one
I like
of which...
this one. Youth is a gift of nature. Aging is a work of art.
Right. Although that's not specifically for this book. It is a button that I had made. But then we made 2 buttons specifically for the book that people love to wear. One of them is called I Am an Outrageous Older Woman. And all over the country I see women wearing these buttons. And now we've decided to do T-shirts. And women are beginning to wear T-shirts that say, I'm an outrageous older woman. I spoke at Simsbury, Connecticut recently, and there were 10 women who were running this conference, all wearing shirts, purple shirts that said, I'm an outrageous older woman, and they're available from KIT Press at the same 800 number.
Now, I think I also want to put this book, the latest book.
Oh, I just wanted to say, Marion, that the other button is RASP. And that men are wearing, too. The subtitle of Be an Outrageous Older Woman is a RASP. And a RASP is a remarkable, aging, smart person. And all your viewers can be RASP, Marion. It's a great organization. There's no dues. There's no newsletter to clutter up their mail. And I'll never ask them to be on a committee. But they can all be RASPs and start rasping to make life better for older people and better for the society. And if you are outrageous enough, you can get away with anything.
Well, that's true.
Because the American Association of Retired People wrote me a letter addressed to Ruth Harriet Jacobs, president of RASP. So RASP really lives.
Oh, I wanted to also mention that you have a column, and Ruth told me something just before we went on camera that amused me. She has 2 columns, and one column is Outrageously Yours, which she does for a magazine in California, but the other one is Dr. Ruth Reports. And I said, do you ever get mixed up with the other Dr. Ruth? Tell them your little quatrain.
Well, I'm the other Ruth, come to tell the truth. And I hope by the time I'm done, you'll think I am the better one.
Very good.
I'm totally uninhibited, but I'm also totally committed. I'm committed to older people, both men and women. And I'm also committed to working for peace, Mary, and it's very crucial.
And you are working, because she has a schedule that's amazing. And the workshops and all the different things that she's doing. She's got your next book you want to talk about yet?
Well, I'm working actually simultaneously on 2 books. One is for older men, because I care about them too, and they have needs.
Sure they do.
And a lot of them have said, you know, why did you just write The Outrageous Women? And the second book is my memoir. I think it's very important for women to tell their stories.
I do too.
I had a very difficult childhood. I didn't go to college until I was 40. And I've been very lucky in the people who have helped me, that have come along and really changed my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to tell my own story, not to brag, not because I'm so important, but I think a lot of women's history is lost.
I think so too, and I think people everywhere are beginning to think more about that. And I see more classes now for older people to tell their stories,
Yes.
and I think that's very important.
You might be interested, Marion, that one of the things I do is I offer free classes in writing for seasoned citizens.
Seasoned citizens.
I prefer that term,
that's nice. Seasoned citizens. I'm going to write that down.
And various councils on aging have me come in and offer a once-a-week course in writing. And my seasoned citizens, some of whom have never written before, write wonderful memoirs.
Of course, because they've got something to say. And I want to say, because we're getting very close to the end of the show, that you had a very special award, Doing Sojourner Peace Award. Was that come from your Quaker background?
Yes, that's from Pendle Hill,
yes,
which is a Quaker kind of educational center.
I've been there.
Think tank, a wonderful place. I'm glad you've been there.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go down in May and give some talks and so forth. And tomorrow, as a matter of fact, I'm getting an award from the New England Sociological Association.
Great.
And I think largely because of the We Speak for Peace book.
Well, that's great. And so now we've got all these books and 2 more coming out and all kinds of things going on. So I can understand what she says, that aging is a wonderful time. And
I'm 68.
68, very good. I'd like to say in closing that Webster's Dictionary defines sociology as the science of society, or the study of the development of social, individual and social relationships. And we're very grateful today to Ruth Harriet Jacobs for her work in gerontology, and particularly in sociology, related to women's issues, but especially, this is the International Year of the Woman, so it's a timely time to have you on, but also because you have revealed ideas and events and various things to us that reflects on society as a whole. So keep it up, and we'll look forward to having you back again. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
And
I love the Cape.
Very good. And thank you for watching. This is Marion Villamia, hoping you'll turn us on again next week, same time, same channel, to meet another fascinating guest, or maybe guests on Books and the World.